Shalom Aleichem. All right, this week's Parsha, Mattos-Massei, and a Sikha is connecting the two Parshas when they are joined as one Parsha, and their connection to the 3 weeks of mourning, the destruction of the temple, known as the Bein HaMetzarim, and a beautiful message on our Avodah, the service, the work that we're supposed to do in this world, and how our being in this physical world and seemingly away from Hashem actually give us the power to succeed in that work. So, schon geredet viel mal, wegen dem, was der Shalah sagt, als die Parshas HaTorah haben eine Sheiches zu dem Zman B'Shana, und sie werden gelehnt und gelernt. So we've said many times before, as the Shalah Kaddish says, that the Parsha is connected to the time of the year in which the Parsha is read, and there's a connection to it. We're moving, and we can explain it like this. As a Zoy euch benegeh Parshas Mattos-Massei, was their kvias is ständig in the Bein HaMetzarim. And we see it the way Mattos and Massei are fixed, scheduled within the 3 weeks. As they haben a shaychus miyuchadis zum Teichen von Bein HaMetzarim, as they have a special connection to the 3 weeks themselves. So B'Parsha zet sich on zer shaychus to Bein HaMetzarim become pratim, and there's many details as it pertains to this connection between the Parsha and the 3 weeks of mourning. So in Parshas Mattos, the Moshe, the Bnei Gad, and Bnei Reuven, the Chet Hamaraglim. So the tribe of Gad and Reuven come to Moshe Rabbeinu. They say that they want to take land that's on the other side of the yard, and they don't want to cross in to Eretz Yisrael. And Moshe Rabbeinu reminds them of the sin of the spies, where they didn't want to go into Eretz Yisrael. So the Velchen die Yidden seine verblieben in Medbar Mem Shana, which was the cause for the Yidden being stuck in the desert for 40 years. Was ist bedugma zum Verhalten sich in Galus, which is what kept us in Galus all those 40 years. Was ist Chilase is Bein HaMetzarim. And this is connected to Galus in general, which is obviously connected as it started with the 3 weeks that we're in right now, the 3 weeks of mourning, the destruction of the temple, which led to our ultimate, the exile and the Galus that we're in. In Anfang von Massei wird erzählt wegen the Masseis. And then we go into Massei, which is discussing Masseis, the journeys in the past that we took while we were in the Midbar. Was wir sagt in Medrash, it says in Medrash, Amalei HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'Moshe mana lahem kol ha'mekaymis heichen hichi isuni v'kach nemar el Massei b'nei Yisrael. That Hashem wanted Moshe Rabbeinu to tell them, remind them, show them all of the places that the Yidden were and which we angered Hashem. The Siva from Bein HaMetzarim and Galus, and angering Hashem is the whole reason we're in Galus. So in the Sedra Retzich wegen Are Miklat, and then it goes further in the Parsha. It talks about the cities of refuge, which the Inyan of Galus was Kunzulib Heirig Nefesh Bishgaga. When a person kills somebody inadvertently by accident, they end up being sent to the cities of refuge where they can't be touched by the family members of the one who was killed by accident. And this obviously also is an idea of Galus. It's a concept of being exiled from the home. So other the Shalah is this Mavar, and the Shalah goes and explains as the Inyanim wegen welches Retzich beParshas Mattos the Chet von the Darim und Shavua was is Pagan ben Neshama und the Chet von Retzicha was is Pagan beguf. And then the Parsha goes on to describe the sin of making a vow and not being able to follow through with that vow, which causes a blemish on the neshama. And then it also goes and discusses murder, which obviously causes a physical blemish on the body. So was retzich in Parshas Massei haben geirim gewen dem churban von the Bati Mikdashes wie is das mivar baruch. And the Shalah explains there that this is really tied and connected to, and really the cause of the destruction of both Bati Mikdash. Bati Mikdashes. So v'yesh daimar, could say that as the shaykhis from the parshas to Bein HaMetzarim is nit nor in the Inyan Galus, was is in Zei Marumas, nor Adrabe in the Nesinas Koyach, oif da Aveda in Bein HaMetzarim to arise gain from Galus. So not only do we see that the parshas have a connection just in the concepts in the parsha themselves and the theme with the 3 weeks of mourning and the exile, But also the parshas themselves contain within them a lesson that should give us an asinas koyach, an empowerment to be able to go forward and come out of galus and to reach the redemption. So the Bir of Zeh, the explanation is like this: Azay vidasis kapshute. The ways that it's explained simply as ala dine avelis from the Bein HaMetzarim tag zayin kla nita b'Shabbos. All the rules, the laws of mourning, they get pushed off when it comes to Shabbos. When it comes to Shabbos, we don't follow the rules of mourning. So it's doch in etzav ba adra b'mitzvah la'anga. You're supposed to, the mitzvah is to be einig Shabbos, to have einig, to be happy and to enjoy Shabbos. Was von dem Zetman as Shabbos is an Indian, wo es nicht an die Sach von Bein HaMetzarim, azoi und noch mehr, is es bepnimis ha'inyanim, wie der Tzemach Tzedek is mavar, as the Shabbosos von Bein HaMetzarim seinen in the Bechina von Magdem Refuah Lamaka. This is an Agdama Refuah of the Inyanim von Bein HaMetzarim. So not only is Shabbos not affected by the 3 weeks of mourning, since the mourning practices get pushed off, so the 3 weeks of mourning, we push the mourning practices off during Shabbos. Not only are they not affected by it, but we see that the mourning of that time is transformed into something that is joyful, right? And it says, the Tzemach Tzedek brings the idea, it says, Makdim Refuah Lamaka, that Hashem sends the cure before the disease, before the illness. So this is the idea that the Shabbosim that fall in the Bein HaMetzarim, the 3 weeks of mourning, are the refuah, the cure that was sent before the mourning, or the reason for mourning. So Valderech Zeh is verstandig, and by extension we can understand even more so beneged the parshas HaTorah welche meleyent in dem Zman, as it pertains to the parsha that's read, that we read during this time. It says that Tzion will be redeemed in mishpat, in judgment. Was mishpat da main dem inyan from Torah. So mishpat, judgment, is alluding to Torah itself. So it's moving as the parshas HaTorah was meleyent melerent in dem Zman seinen an inyan von Magdem Refuah to the Makkah from Galus. So since we're saying that Torah in and of itself is the redemption, the thing that will redeem Tzion, the Jewish people, and Tzion, the land itself, we can see that Torah itself is the refuah that's sent also before the illness. So we have the Torah as being the cure for Galus. So das heißt, as Hayra und es in Kayach auf der Aveda von Bein HaMetzarim, welche bringt dem l'sasen l'simcha l'moyadim tevim. It says that in the future, in the times of Geula, we will see these times that are associated with Galus and with the destruction of the temple as the first steps of the Geula, and therefore we'll transform these days into days of rejoicing and holidays and holy days. They'll be good days, and we'll celebrate. So we see over here that this is the Nesinas Koyach. It's an empowerment and the avodah, the work that's going to lead to us actually being able to do this transformation. So we bald as alle in Yonim Materis and Betachel Sadiak of Mikol Shekain from the Yonia Elam vu Yede Zach is Bashgacha Pratis. When you see that the Torah, everything in the Torah is exactly the way it's supposed to be, and you can even see in the way that the world works that everything is divine providence. Everything is Hashgacha Pratis, is moving as b'shas the kvias is ba'ifin v'heintik yar as parshas Mattos-Massei zane mechubaris. In a time like this year, in the year that the Rebbe said the Sicha, it happens to be say this idea is the same as right now, which is that Mattos and Massei are connected. Is da b'zeh hidra und sinas koyach miuchedes in the avodah from Bein HaMetzarim. We see that there's an even more special and direct association and an empowerment that comes from the parshas Mattos and Massei when they're combined during Bein HaMetzarim. So the inyan kupshutai, the basic idea is like this: in the yarin, when Mattos und Massei seinen nefrades, werden in die Bein HaMetzarim gelehnt und gelernt, blois drei sedres, Mattos-Massei und Dvarim, in years which the Mattos and Massei are separated in their two distinct parshas, we only end up reading 3 parshas during the Bein HaMetzarim, 3 weeks. We read Mattos, then the next Shabbos we read Massei, then we read Dvarim, Deuteronomy. So b'shas aber Mattos and Massei zene mechubaris, when we find ourselves in a year where the 2 parshas are combined, kommt zu in die Bein HaMetzarim wochen nach a parsha in Torah. We find that we're adding another parsha from the Torah, Parshas Pinchas, which comes before Mattos and Massei. Und in gewisse Kviesen, and in such a schedule, in such a layout, wie b'shana zu, like in this week, in this year, the year that he spoke the Sicha, Euch Parshas Balak, was men leint in Tag von Sheva Asur B'Tammuz, the erste Tag von Bein HaMetzarim. So the first day of the mourning period is the 17th of Tammuz, and in the year that the Rebbe said the Sikha, that day fell on Shabbos. And that Shabbos reading, the Parsha, was Parshas Balak, which comes before Pinchas. Und wie bald als in dem Zman kommt zu Aribe Beteira, ist verstandig, als man hat durch dem euch a geressere und starkere Nesinnes Koyach auf zum Rappe sein, aber auf in der Magdem bevor, the in Yonah Bein HaMetzarim. We see when there's an increase, meaning we're reading even more Torah than we might normally, or we might in a different year, the more Torah we're including, we can see that through this, and because of this, we have an even stronger empowerment to heal and to transform the Bein HaMetzarim, the 3 weeks of the mourning, because we have another parsha, and in this year that he spoke this, there was even a fourth parsha, or a fifth parsha rather. As is this is also a thing that's understandable, as the Nesinnes Koyach is verbunden nit nur mit dem Ribe B'Teira, that the empowerment is not only associated with this increase in Torah, nor euch mit dem Chibur von der Heira, von dem Teichen von der Parshas Mattos-Massei, mit Zazer Shaychus Miuchades zu dem Zman, genau. But we see even more so the fact that these two parshas are combined and connected as one parsha, and they fall, and the way that they fall in the year. So wenn men das verstehen, behagtem habir, as das, was in gewisse Shabbosim seinen zwei Sedres mechubaris. We see in other years, we see other parts of the year where two parshas are two separate parshas and they're combined. Tazria Metzora, Chukas Balak, we just had, right? Meint es nit as men leint in ein Shabbos zwei sedres. We find that anytime we have this, it's not that we're laning two separate parshas in one Shabbos, but really they become one thing. Nor there his chabris is ba'ifin as even ein sedre. They become one parsha. Und wie sie is muchach davon, was me leint nit jede sedre bezunder. We don't lane them separate. We don't read this parsha and then the second half of the parsha as if it's two separate things. In an anders man b'Shabbos, like we read it in a different time later in Shabbos. Noch mit b'Shas melein ze zusammen. In fact, we read them together, and when we read them together, is the Chalukas Hakriya of Shiva Kruyim. Va'ader ze in Chalukas Parshas to the limud von Shiur Chitas b'Meshech HaShavua. Euch nid in an Eifen was is kentig Zettelung zwischen ze. 4 Kruyim und Parshias in the erste Sedra und Rai in the zweite Uchayotze. We don't find that when we have them combined that we're reading one Parsha in 4 aliyahs and then the second Parsha in the last 3 aliyahs, or separating them in any way like this. Nor melent unmelernt als riboy or als revi'i. Sorry, we read everything within the parsha. Dem Sium von erste Sedra zusammen mit der Schala von zweite. We read in the 4th aliyah, we read the end of Mattes and the beginning of Massei all in one aliyah. Und die Brachas lefnei oder achere werden gemacht auf Psukim von beide Sedras zusammen. And the bracha we say before the aliyah and the bracha we say after the aliyah aren't separating between the two parshas, the way that they fall within that one aliyah. It becomes one aliyah, the connecting piece between the two parshas. So l'chayra, seemingly vibald is be'etzem zayin ze bazundar sedra. Since essentially they're two separate parshas. Vidas is mugash in the kaviyas b'kam shanim when ze zayin nefrades. Like we see in the fact that when they are separated, there are years where the two parshas are not together. Hatmen dach gedarf machen zwischen ze afanander tel. They become two separate things. Akopanim and kriyas parshas eich wenn ze zayin zusammen. But we could still make that there's whatever, we can still see that they're connected, even though they're read as two separate parshas. But we're going to see how. From dem gufa is muchach. From this, it's evident that as when the parshas zenim mechubaris werden ze demot ein sedra. We see it when the two are read as one parsha. We see the tie. Das heißt chaz as jede von ze hot ir bazundere inyan v'teichen. Even though each one has its own content and its own theme, Varam de Teira is doch ungetelt in gan set the sedarim. There's 53 separate sedras. So these two parshas it's going to make sense that they have two different content. The content is different, and the theme is a little different. Von deswegen, b'shas kommt die Kvias, wenn wir lehen sie zusammen, werden sie nicht als ein Parsha. However, when we read them as one Parsha, we can see that there's one underlying theme and concept that goes throughout them. So we have to figure out how. Darfen verstehen in Yanenu, we have to see how it applies in our what we're talking about. L'choira, haben Parshas Mattos-Massei, kein Sheiches nit zwischen sich. These two parshas seem to not really have anything in common with each other. From a from a superficial standpoint, need viatzal andere parsha sotered by welchen ein parsha kommt behemshech. Like we see Tazria Mitzayra. Tazria is about a person who becomes who gets tzaras, and Mitzayra is a person who becomes tar. Right. In fact, the parsha I think in Rambam, the Gemara, is referred to as Tahara, Parshas Tahara. We say Mitzayra. And so when we see and Chukas Balak, maybe the concepts aren't related, but it's chronological. So these two are connected. However, nit viatzal andere parsha sotered by ein parsha kommt behemshich in zman other in teichen. So those two parshas, either they make sense in theme or in concept, or they make sense chronologically. To the friedike parsha, but parshas Matis red wegen de zivuyim ma'eris was seinen angesagt geworden und vergekommen beim Seif Shana Shnas Ha'arbayim von the Yaren wenn Yidden seine gewähn in Midbar. However, this parsha, Mates, ends with the end of the 40 years. It's the very end of the 40 years when they're in the desert. Mashe ein came parshas Massei, was heit sich an mit Massei b'nei Yisrael. Is a me'ein sacha kol b'nei ge'ed Masseis und gewissen me'eirish behem. Von des Svarim Shmeis v'yigra b'midbar, was das nimmt arum, the Meshech von Abba Arbayim Shana b'midbar. That Massei goes and readdresses the whole path in the story of the journey from the Midbar, which really took place during the 40 years, leaving Egypt all the way until going into Eretz Yisrael. So it seems like Parshas Matos is discussing the end of the 40-year journey, and Massei, the next parsha, the last of the two parshas, is going back and discussing the whole 40-year journey. So Shengaret Filmo, Al Yisei Teres of Baal Shem Tov, and he brings a fundamental concept that's brought in the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov, the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov. Ashmei Asher Yikru Loi B'Lashon HaKodesh is the Chayes von the Zach, was tragt den Namen, und is Marames Eif Ir Teichen. The name that something has in Hebrew, in the holy language, is not only does it give life and vitality to the thing itself, but it also alludes to the theme and the underlying concept of the person or the nature in some sort. For example, the example commonly used is Chelek, dog, is kula leiv, the animal that is completely goes according to its heart and its desires, right? So everything that we see in Hebrew, the holy language is the way that everything was created, Hashem's speech. So the Hebrew word shows us not only it gives life to the thing that it's the name of, but it also shows you what the thing is about. So, as al derech zeh is b'shmos hasedros, and we can look at the names of the parshas and say the same thing, right? So the Teichen Pnimi von der ganzen Sedra sagt sich eis in dem Shem HaSedra. Ubein Yanenu, the Teichen von Parshas Matos is Marames in dem Nomen wie sie wird gerufen al pi minhag Yisrael Matos und azayich minhagei Parshas Massei. So the names of these two parshas obviously also show something about the theme of the parsha itself. The hasbara in them, the explanation is like this: Megafint zwei tayarim mit welche Yidden werden bezeichnet als Shvatim. So there's two ways to describe tribal affiliation. There's Shevet, which means a tribe, and there's Mata, which means a tribe. Shvatim und Mates. Shvatim is plural and Mates is plural. Was der Chiluk zwischen sie ist verstandig leid sehr badait in Moshel and Pashtus. Shevet is a Zweig, was is Nachweg. A shevet is a branch, a branch that is soft, meaning it still has life. It's still either it's attached to the tree, in which case it's still receiving its moisture and life from the tree, so it's soft, it's pliable. Masha ein kein Mata is a Stecken, was ist schön, hart und stark. Und der Tam, was sie zu dem Unterschied zwischen sie, Shevet, is a Zweig, was hat noch die Jenika von Ilan, und der Veramim is a Tage mechuber zum Ilan. So a Mata is a stick, a branch that's broken off of the tree and has been removed long enough that it becomes hard and stiff. So a shevet is a tree, is a branch that still has moisture in it. Either it's still attached to the tree or just recently fell off, so it's still connected. It still has its vitality from the tree. Whereas a mata is completely, it's removed from the tree. It's no longer getting its vitality from the tree in that way, and it's not pliable anymore. It's hard. It's strong. So der Rieber ist der Anaf frisch und weich dagegen am Mate, während Davke, wenn der Anaf ist abgeschnitten und hat mehr nicht die Jenika von dem Ilan und der Fahr, is chazak b'kasha. It's the fact that it's no longer attached and getting its vitality from the tree that causes it to be strong and really hard. Okay, so derech zeh is the chiluk zwischen the zwei arim by Yidden, and we can see the connection, the correlation between these two nicknames as it pertains to the Jewish people. Sai Shvatim und Sai Matis deuten an as Neshamas Yisrael stammen von a Sherish ve'ilan von Elokus von Ilan de Le'ela. The Jewish people have Neshamas, and the Neshamas are connected to Hashem, meaning we are branches of Hashem, the tree, the supernal tree, the tree on high, the tree that gives life. So we are, the Neshama has a level within it that it remains connected to Elokus, to godliness. Nor the Toya Shvatim vised of the Neshama vizi is mechuber mit Elokus begalo. You can see how the Neshama is in a revealed state connected to godliness. This is the Shevet. Vizi state in a dvekus to Ilana de La'ela. It's connected and attached to the tree of to the supernal tree. Ubechlalis is this marames of the Neshama vinziv gefind zich lamaila. This is the way the Neshama exists as it exists on high in the heavens. It's completely surrendered to Hashem. It's connected to and completely attached and getting all of its vitality through the tree. Masha Enkein Mates is Mitayer the Yidden Vise Seine Begalui nit verbunden mit dem Makor. Es ist nit Nicker Begalui sehr dwekes in Elokus und Bechlaus ist das wie the Neshama kumt arab lamata and guf and Nefesh Bahamis. But the Mata, you can see, is no longer in heaven. It's not completely attached and at all times, aware of its attachment to Hashem and godliness, and therefore it becomes hardened, right? And this is the way that the neshama exists in the world when it comes into a physical body with an animal soul and a world around it. You can see the effect that it has. Was durch die Yerida in dem Guf und Nefesh Bahamis werdet in es Gashim und Keilu wie abgeteilt von Ilana de La'ela. It becomes a physical thing. The neshama becomes engrossed and encapsulated in this physical body in a physical world with an animal soul, and it becomes as if, not really, but as if it were detached from the supernal tree. Und das ist euch, was Mattes is Marames als Shem Parsha wie Neshamas Yisrael kommen herab in Yerida und werden es gaschen wie Daven Nifra von Makor. You can see the way that the neshama comes down, and when it's in the body and it's in a person, it looks like it's detached from Hashem. Masha ein kein the Shem Massei was badait as men geht avek lagamri von friedigen Ort und man kommt zu neenter zu Eretz HaKodesh a hechere Ort. We can see from Massei is a story of the Yidden traveling, and the idea as it pertains to going into Eretz Yisrael, which is a higher level than the desert. They're in exile, and they're about to travel, to go, Massei, a journey, into Eretz HaKodesh, into the Holy Land, a hecheren art, a higher place. Meint es ba'avedas Hashem de Nesiya v'halicha zu welche de neshama kommt durch der Yerida lamata in an Eifen von Mattes. And this is the way that the neshama, or the Yidden, are able to travel, to progress, to go into a place when they're going down into this world, which is an idea of mata, being strong, right? Seemingly detached from the tree, from the supernal tree. Das heißt, as davka durch de Yerida de Greicht, the neshama zu a hechere Darge legabe, wie sie is gestanden lemeile for the Yerida. It's the fact that the neshama comes down into a physical world that it gets its strength, which makes it stronger than it was when it existed in the heavens in the first place. So the neshama kaidem ha-Yerida vered angerufen eimet, azavi malachim. The neshama is like angels when it's in the heavens. But what do we know about the angels? They stand. They don't move. They stand and they serve. It's an incredible service. It's an incredible way of serving Hashem. However, it stands still. So varum iraveda in Avos Hashem v'yiras Hashem is b'medida v'hagbala. It's limited. It doesn't move. Ubamela afilu then sie is eila in a hechere darga, even as it goes to a higher level, or a malach which is on a higher level than the previous one. Hesis aber nit as the gate avek legamre von friediken maimedomatziv. It doesn't actually move once it's in its place. It doesn't progress. Under wird das angerufen amida. That's why it's called standing. It's in a standstill. Aber durch Yerida Lamate in Guf and Nefesh Bahamas in the Bechina von Mates. However, through this descent into a physical body, in a physical world with an animal soul, it gets the level of Mates, of a strong stick. Durch ze mit ze is im Mekayim Torah mitzvahs, was is Chachmasu Retzana Yisbarach Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's through this hardness and this stubbornness that it acquires by coming down into this physical world and being seemingly removed from the supernal tree, that it has the power and the koyach, the ability to fulfill the Torah mitzvahs, which are the wisdom of Hashem and the will of Hashem. So kommt sie zum Inyan von Masse. Sie wird bewechina mahalech. Be'ein areich hecher, wie the neshama is given freer, zayin diklamaila. And this is the idea of Masse, of a journey. Going on a journey means you're traveling, you're progressing. And then neshama comes down, and through this strength that it acquires, it reaches a higher madrega by working and serving Hashem and learning Torah and doing mitzvahs and being righteous in this world. It reaches a higher level than it ever could have, incomparably higher than it was when it was Lamaila in Shemayim, in heavens. So das is wie the Inyan is bechlalis. As Yeridus and Neshama is marumas in Parshas Mates, on the Schar va'aliyah in Parshas Massei. And this is how we can see how it pertains to the Neshama as it comes down into this world. That's Mates. And then Massei, the next Parsha, is the reward for having come down and done the job. But Pratius aber is Sai in Mates, und Sai in Massei marumas heindi Yeridus and Neshama, und heindi Avedus and Neshama, und Schar va'aliyah. And but you can also see both of the messages from each parsha within the other parsha. So they each have their own concept, but you can see that concept in its partner parsha. You can see them both. So the Hartkeit und Starkheit von Mattes weist nicht nur auf dem, was der Neshama ist geworden wie ein Dover Nifrad von Elokus Kanal. Nor is Merames euch in der Teike va'aveda, was darf sein in is da und is da bei Ayiden Lamata, bei Kumen der Sterungen von Guf von Nefesh Bahamas. Weil Achas kamen wir von Welt. Darf man stehen mit der Chayzek v'Teike von der Mata, a starken Stecken, nicht nispal zu werden und beistehen alle Heilen, was wir stehen. Okay, so we can see from Mates the fact that it's this strength that when the neshama comes down into this world and becomes seemingly detached from godliness, it finds itself in this lowly place in a world, and it's specifically from this position that one requires an additional bit of strength. They tap into that inner strength in order just to be able to stay afloat in this world. Und b'shas da lamata tut sein aveda b'terer mitzvahs mit Starkheit und veret nit nispar von alle ha'elamas. When the neshama comes down in this world and does Torah mitzvahs and lives like a yid in this world without being affected and swayed by the world and the concealment of godliness that's down here, is euch sein schar in der bechina von mata. The reward is the ability to reach this level of mata, this hardness. Es kommt zu in der neshama a teike v'chezek von dem shadish neshama von eitan sheba neshama. The eitan sheba neshama, or the esan, which is the hard part of the neshama. Really, it's the yechida sheba nefesh. It's the highest point of the neshama. This part is the strength of the neshama, and one can only attain this level of neshama when it comes down into this world, from the level of mates. Noch mehr, wie der Neshama hat gehakt bei sie is given l'mayla b'v'china shevet. The way that the Neshama exists, in the way that the Neshama exists on high in the heavens, on a level of shevet, where it's still seemingly connected to Elokus, the way that it exists here is down in this world when it reaches Asan is much higher than the Neshama could reach when it was up high in Shemayim. So V'aderech zeh is das als marumas in the Massei lashon rabim. When it says journeys, Massei, this is plural. Is oich meramis with them Massei haneshama l'mayla l'mata. This is also the journey, is an allusion to the journey that the neshama takes when it comes down into this world from its place in the heavens. Okay, but in Olam Hazer, das, was es darf sein, bei dem jeden Lamate der Avede bederich Masse und Aliyah von Darga zu Darga, Hecher und euch des Schar, was der Neshama bekommt durch dem is Massai, as the Ilya Neshama is in an Eifen von Hilach. And also, not only that, but the fact that this that once it comes down into this world, it then serves Hashem and works and reaches this level of mata where it's becoming strong and it reaches this strong level of its neshama. This is also a journey going level after level after level. As we said, the neshama can't do that when it's in the Shemayim. However, down in this world, you can attain higher and higher levels by constantly working. And this is movement, progression. So Alpi Kol Hanal is verstandig, the Sheiches from Parshas Mattos-Massei zu Bena Mitzarim. Now we can understand the connection between these two parshas and the 3 weeks of mourning, right? These 3 weeks where we're mourning the temple, the destruction of the temple, and our subsequent exile. These two parshas, as we said in the beginning, are connected to the idea of the three weeks. So the Eiftu in an Inyan Hanal from Mattos-Massei, the effect or the impact that we have in Parshas Mattos and Massei, das was the Neshama kommt herab lemate und darf da ton ihre Weide beteken für Chule war der Zed des Schar ist beikr nicht also mit Zad etzem Yeridus und Neshama nor mit Zad der Yerida in Zman HaGolus. In the Inyan von Bena Mitzarim, it's not only like everything that we just said about the fact that the Neshama reaches this high level when it comes down into this world and into this physical world, and then has to attain a strong level of the Neshama to go higher. Yes, this coming down into the world is a type of exile. It is in and of itself an exile. However, it's even more highlighted when we find ourselves down into this physical world in a time of actual gullus, of actual exile. So we're in exile when we're down into this physical world. We're in exile from Shemayim. But when we're in this physical world, we're even more so in exile when we're in exile, obviously, right? And that's the message of the Beina Mitzarim of the 3 weeks, is that it's a time of exile. So we see right now that we're in this time of exile. So Eifin Zman Habayis, when we were in the times of the Beis HaMikdash. When we were in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, Zman Habayis is called. We said that there were 10 miracles that a Yid would see, a person would see when they go into the Beis HaMikdash. They would see all these miracles that were happening. Okay, we saw active miracles. It says, "Wenn Yidden haben gesehen und gehört Elokus begaloi." They could see and they could hear godliness as if it was, the physical reality in front of them. That it says that a person would come to see and be seen. So not only did they come and see and hear godliness, but they would also be swept up into the experience of godliness. And their love and fear of God was with this constant ready awareness of godliness, because they saw it, they experienced it. Of them can man nit sagen, as es seine gewähn in an Eufen von Mattes, nifrod meheila. We can't say that these people were existing in a way of Mattes, where they felt some kind of separation from godliness or from the tree, the supernal tree. How could we say that? They were right there and seeing godliness, experiencing it. Nor Eufen von Shevet. They were clearly attached, right? They were experiencing it. Verbunden mit den Sheidish with Guf their body was connected to the source. Their whole experience was connected to the source. They haben der Ibedan nicht gedarft ankommen zu atekef miyuchad kedeitan die Aveda von Teira und Mitzvahs. Ubermele is moving as es is euch nicht nis gala geworden the Eitan sheben Neshama. This was not, they weren't able, even though they were experiencing godliness, they weren't reaching the level of mates because they never felt like they were disconnected from godliness in such an experience. However, because of that, while it obviously has its maila, the major chesaron, the downside of that was that they never got to reach the level of asan of the neshama, that strong piece of the neshama. However, when we are in a time of exile, like we are now, where we can't see or hear or experience godliness the way that we did during the time of the Beis HaMikdash. We exist in a way that we're clouded by the many concealments of godliness in the world that we're experiencing, and we don't experience open godliness the way that we did during the times of the Beis HaMikdash. We're living in a time that enables us and requires us to reach a level of mates. Es setzt sich nicht sehr dweikes in Elokus, darfen sie darüber ausrufen und megale sein bei sich a viel stärkeren Teikev aufzubekommen, die Menias ועיכובים, אויב דה עבודה von Teure Mitzvah so befragt, noch אויב zu mahapich sein, dem Cheshech HaGadol L'Nahira. So we find ourselves in a situation, in a time where we're forced to reach this level of strength, the strong part of the neshama, in order to not only push away the darkness and the materialism of this physical world, but to transform it from being in an existence of exile, of galus, into light, from darkness into light. Und therefore is demalt euch sehr schar in the Eifen von Mattes, and this is the reward of having the level of Mattes, of strength. As the Teike von Etzem HaNeshama werdet dann is gale mehr wie bisman habayis und wie be'ez the Neshama is lamaila. We find ourselves with a strength that comes from the Etzem HaNeshama, the essence of the soul, which is revealed more so than it is during the times of the Beis HaMikdash. And even more so than it is the way the neshama exists when it's in heaven. Und in an Eifen von Massei, in the neshama. And this leads to Massei. This leads to a journey, a progression, the ability for the neshama to go level after level. In Massei. And this also allows us to understand the other concepts that we see in Parshas Massei, the second parsha in the connected one sedra. So das Alt is gered geworden wegen an Inyan, was is euch da mitzad die Parshas Mattes und Masse mitzad Atzmai, das heißt, euch, wenn sie seine nit mechubares, berei vashanim, aber wenn Mattes und Masse seine mechubares, kommt zu a Tosefes Hayranus in es Koyach. We find not only in any year, we find a koyach, an empowerment that comes from these parshas, but we find an additional empowerment that comes when the two are connected as one parsha, like this year. Was jede eine von sie peilt auf the zweite, that one has an effect on the other. Das heißt, demalt is da an a sinnes koyach miyuchades, as the avodah soll sein in a hecheren Eifen und leidach gisa soll sie ankommen leichter. Something that comes, it's an empowerment that we can tap into and we can use at a later time as well. Und im Inyan von Mattes, in the Yerida in Zman HaGalus, is mudgash as das is Massei, as das ha der Eberste azay gefiret, wie die Masseis und Midbar kepshutam, wo seine gewähn alpi higher Yisu, ubemele gibt es a speziellen Idud und Tosefes Ois in der Aveda von in Galus. We see also the fact that we didn't just go on these journeys on our own or on our own accord. Yes, we were stuck in Galus because of our actions, but it ultimately ended up being that everywhere we went while we were in the Midbar was dictated to us by Hashem. So a person should know that throughout their life, within all the journeys that they find themselves in, even if it seems like it's a consequence of one's own actions, it's important to note that ultimately Hashem is guiding us. Al derech zeh, in der Avodah von Mattes, wie das ist zusammen mit Masse. We see when Parshas Mattes is connected and read together with Masse. Hat man denn es in das Koyach von Teira, as in jeder Indien, was tut ba wie das bis Managalas, soll sein der Teike von Mattes, in an Eifen von Masse, ili acher ili in dem Teike von Mattes. We see that when a person reaches the level of Mattes, that becomes the way that they're serving Hashem. That Mattes should lead to Masse, journeys, that a person reaches level after level, higher and higher. And this is done through the strength of Mattes. Azay euch in dritten Indien von Mattes. Is the third Indian in Mattes, the Teike from Shadish and Neshama, the strength that comes from the source of the Neshama. Was werden is Gala in the Aveda von Mattes, which is revealed when it comes to the Aveda, to the work, the serving Hashem from a place of Mattes, is Ba'ofen Shel Masse, is done in a way of journey, al Sehecher Shadish. is a higher to you reach the higher source of the neshama. Bez a safe is this an ilui was der greich zu a tekef was is hecher von einem tekef von shedish neshama. You ultimately reach a strength in the neshama which is higher even than the neshama is as it exists on high. Warum der tekef shedish neshama is dag begin is gvul. Und durch der Schleimes ha'aveda in een Eufen von Mattes, in Zman Golus. Werden de Neshama Nisale noch hecher davon in Alakus, was is blieg wo, bis zu le is der Abba begufe de Malka, als sie werden ein Sach wie auch mit Atzmus. Okay. The way that the person exists on high, reaches a level of Mattes. They reach a level of strength that is higher than the Neshama, the way that it exists on high. And we said that the neshama, the way it exists on high, is like malachim, like angels, which as high as they are limited. They exist as limited beings. Now, when we serve Hashem the way that we do in this world, and we go outside of our own limitations, we aren't bound by anything like we are in Shemayim, we become limitless. We become something, an entity that goes beyond its limitations. And by doing so, we become connected, as it were, to Hashem himself. Not Hashem through a revealed way, Hashem as he reveals himself to the world, but Hashem as he exists to himself. Hashem himself. Ula'idach is the Massei, the Schar, Vahalicha in the Neshama, nicht in an anderes Man, nor es kommt zusammen mit Mattes. Das heißt, erscheint demot, wenn Eid gefindt sich da lamata, tut sich bei ihm auf der Haliche Va'aliyah. So, on the other hand, when it comes to journeys, the neshama comes down in this world, and when the neshama is here, it comes together with the mates, this concept of mates, and by doing so, as we said before, he finds himself here able to move beyond his own limitations and go higher and higher and progress in his work and in his service. And the neshama reaches a higher level. So al pi zeh vet men verstehen de sheiches von de zwei Inyanim was davke wenn Parshas Mattos und Masse seine mechubares lehnt men und men lernen euch Parshas Pinchas in Beina Mitzarim und vor allem wie de kvies von heitiges Jahr euch Parshas Balak. So when we read the two parshas together, like we said earlier, we also read Pinchas. Pinchas comes first. And the story of Pinchas is that Pinchas risked his life. He went on Mesiras Nefesh. He went on self-sacrifice for Hashem. He saw Zimri doing something that was causing harm to the Jewish people, and he didn't ask questions. He took a spear and he handled business. This act of Mesiras Nefesh, knowing he was killing a leader of an entire tribe, he was risking his life. Like they weren't going to come for all the smoke after he just killed their tribal leader. But he did it anyway. He risked his life. And this is the concept of Mesiras Nefesh, of going, serving Hashem beyond your limitations, just completely surrendering. So the question stands then. As in jede Masse soll stehen mit dem Tekef v'chesek von Mattes. Es seien doch da verschiedene Chilukim in der Masses von der Eid b'meshech Yemei Chayev, Shinuyim von Aliyas v'Yeridas, bis as kennen sein min hakatze ala katze. How can we say that throughout a person's life, a person is expected to react to every situation with the same strength every time? Person has highs and lows. A person has good experiences and bad experiences, or they feel like they're winning, and sometimes you don't feel like you're winning, right? You're at your best, and sometimes you're the opposite extreme, one extreme to the other. So B'Shleima, wenn man halt bei Vayisu Ramses, geendigt von Mitzrayim, was gewinn biyad Ramaleine kol Mitzrayim. When we came out of Mitzrayim, we were flying, we were winning, we were so happy. Oder bei Masse, was hat geführt zum Midbar Sinai, kann man verstehen, as demot is masim zu verlangen, dem Tekef, was mit darf nutzen auf zu gehen, noch recher in der Aveda. Wie kann man aber fordern bei Aiden dem Tekef, wenn halt bei Masse von Resima, Ashim Lashon Hara, Shel Meraglim, oder in Evelashitim, was ist verbunden mit dem Chet von Pa'er? How can we say that the Yidden were expected to respond with the same level of strength as they did when they were leaving Mitzrayim, when we were winning and happy, when we were doing something horrible, like the sin of the spies, telling whatever it was, sinning, avodah zarah, all the different things that we messed up in Mitzrayim, or in the Midbar, in the desert. How are we expected to have the same level of strength as we were when we were at our best, when we were leaving Mitzrayim? Very interesting idea here. He says, "Oif them" is the answer, and this is the answer. Parshas Pinchas. Pinchas is the answer. When the teichev in Aveda is mitzad zayin eigen mitzias, when the strength comes from one's own ability and one's own strength, vibade mensch is a mugba. A person is a limited being. You're a limited existence in this world. Ken der nit sein the teichev b'chol ha'mases. You can't expect to respond and react to every situation with the same level of strength and the same. You can't win every time. B'shas aber sein teikef in Aveda is al derech vi ba Pinchas in Bekanoi Eskinasi. Pinchas went with zealousy, as a zealot. He was zealous for the name of Hashem, for the sake of Hashem. When a person serves Hashem and everything they do is for the purpose of Hashem, then what ends up happening? We are not bound by our own strength. We have the strength of Hashem. And this is because hat sich eingestellt mit Mesiras Nefesh b'fnei kol ha'am Yisrael. This is because a person has Mesiras Nefesh. You're not going on your own strength. You're going beyond your own strength, right? B'fnei kol ha'am Yisrael. Wenn beim Yidden is da als Hagdama de Tenua von Mesiras Nefesh b'poel geht reis von sein Metzias is demalt kein chiluk nit da bei was faramasa hat fir durch dem tzivui Hashem mitten selben teikef. We see that this person has the same strength regardless of whether they're winning or losing, because it's not coming from their own strength. It's coming from the strength of Hashem by going outside of one's own limitations. Und damit is moving as shleimus achibur von der Aveda von Mattos mit der Aveda von Massei tut sich euch davke dan wenn man lehnt euch Parshas Pinchas in derselbe Tekufa bebeina mitzarim. Aber fra leute kvies b'shana zu was man lehnt nicht nur wegen dem eibischten Schar von Meise Pinchas, nur euch Parshas Bala, was bis Yuma werdet erzählt euch wegen Meise Mesiras Nefesh shalei. Was sein Eifen ha'aveda is den sinnes koyach oif achibur b'shleimus von Mattos-Massei. This is why Parshas Pinchas then leads to Mattos and Massei in the Beina Mitzarim in the 3 weeks when the two are combined. Because when Mattos and Massei are combined and we have this aveda and this empowerment that comes from the message of the connection of the two, it includes Pinchas and the act of Mesiras Nefesh and the idea of going beyond one's own limitations, because you're not running on your own strength. You're running on the strength of the Eibishter. You're running on the power from Hashem. So al derech zeh is euch the shayla b'neged and chibur from Mattos-Massei in dem schar. And this is also the connection between Mattos and Massei and the reward thereof. Wie ken den Neshama ubefrat, wie sie kommt arab lamate in dem Beina Mitzarim von Galus zu kommen zum Inyan von Massei. Coming down in this world, it leads to progressing. Zum Geidel Teikef von Neshama bis wie es is hecher, wie sie is in einem Shadish and Neshama l'mayla mayla. Tapping into one's deepest strength of the Neshama higher than it even exists, higher even than the way that it exists when it's connected to the supernal tree, that in and of itself is reward. The ability to tap into that level of the Neshama, the Eitan. Und noch mehr, als das soll mehr sein bei der Neshama, wie sie ist bebechinas Mattes l'mate b'zman ha'galus. And furthermore, one needs to shine in a way that looks like the person has the strength of Mattos down here in this world when they're in Galus. Oh, I see you changed it. Yes, Eitan, that's right, exactly. So this is the reward from with all of your might. This happens by the neshama coming down into this world. In Zman HaGolus, and specifically in the time of exile. Steht doch as nor b'misasen rein noch ein Bitter von Gul v'nefesh Bahamas in the Aveda von the Skafi of the Isabcha aber nit b'chayehem. This happens because when a person comes down into this world and they they use iskafia and ishapcha. Iskafia is restraining from things, and ishapcha is the next step, which is transforming things. Is oif dem the entfer, and this comes the answer. Parshas Pinchas. Was we learn, we learn, and we read in the beginning of the 3 weeks. Das is calls man, the mensch is over Hashem mitzad sein mitzias, when I feel the avoda is in the hechster madreges. Geht nit areis von sich, von der Hagbalas von der Nivra. Beshas aber seine avoda is mitoich mesiris nefesh mames, hepech hatevel garment. Demal geht areis von Gidre Nivra. I feel von Gidre Haneshama, wie sie is bescheidet Sharsha. Was sie is fort am Metzias und nit Atzmus. Und sie werdet ein Sach gewiachel mit Atzmus, Baruch Tashuv Elikim Asher Nesana. Okay, when a person serves by Mesiris Nefesh, not only are you going outside of yourself, but the very fact that you are now a limited being going outside of one's own limitations, you are becoming godly. You are connecting, as it were, to Hashem himself. And this is a pasuk. It says that the spirit returns to the God that gave it in its first place. That the spirit returns. And this is the idea that you're reaching this level because you're going beyond being a limited being. As a limited being, breaking one's limitations is godly. It's out of this world. You're becoming a new thing. And when it comes to self-sacrifice, as it pertains to itself, this is a purification process that takes place and a refinement for the guf and nefesh bahamas of the body and the animal soul. Und derfar ken by the neshama euch beguf dol matet bisman golos der Herr werden der aliyah v'halicha bli gvul masei. So was the neshama kum zu ayidei avidasa. This is the journey and the progression that the neshama causes the neshama to go higher and higher. Wie der Mad frier is da noch ein Inyan miyuchad, was b'shas mates u'mases zane mechubares, is da lefa'amim akvies, wie der Jahr was der erste Tag von Bein Hametzarim Yud Zayin Tammuz, und azay euch der letzte Tag Tisha B'Av is Chav Shabbos Parshas Balak. And the year that the Rebbe read this, said the Sicha, it happened that Parshas Pinchas was the first week, Mattos-Massei was the second week, then was Dvarim, and on Tisha B'Av itself, the final day of the morning, which was itself a fast day, was also on Shabbos, which was that was Dvarim. Tisha B'Av was Dvarim. It happened. Shabbos Chazayin could be Dvarim, and it was the first week was Balak, then Pinchas, then Mattos-Massei, then Dvarim. So over there we see 5 parshas being read. So the Bir V'zeh in the Shaykhis to the Friedik and Hasbara in the Chibur from Mattos-Massei, when it comes to this the way that it happens in this last this particular connection and schedule of the parshas falling out, the ikka kavana from Yeridas and the Shama Lamata B'chlal of Efrabis Managalas B'chinas Mates is wie der alte Rebbe zog in Tanya von Eitz Chaim as a neshama atzma eine tzricha tikkun klal. The alter Rebbe brings that the neshama doesn't need any fixing. The neshama is perfect. The neshama doesn't need anything. So why is it coming down in this world? Nor yerida oif mitaken sein dem guf v'nefesh bahamas und chelke hashayich la miklalus elam hazeh. The neshama comes down to refine a body and to refine an animal soul and to refine its piece of the world around him that's relevant to him or her. Derfun is euch verstandig, and therefore we can understand as the ikar haveda mitten tekef va'ois fumates, that the main idea of the work which comes with a strength, an additional strength, the strength on the level of mates, va'al derech zeh the emes eschar was vetted by Eden mates umase is the aveda lamata in the aveda lamata. The whole point is that this aveda, this work and this way of serving Hashem happens down in this world. Is nit nar in them was the neshama is sich misgaber auf alle Elemes ve'esteren von Guf und Nefesh Bahamas und auf in Cheshech Galos in the neshama und the neshama tut. It's not just that it overpowers and gets rid of the body and the animal soul. It's not a destruction. Nor be'ikr in the aveda von is kafia One also has to incorporate the transformation of the animal soul. A person has an animal soul. And the muscle is like this. You say you have an ox, and the ox is wild. The ox does damage. You don't want to just kill the ox. You want to put a yoke on the ox. You want to use the ox to be able to plow a field, to grow something beautiful. So you don't want to kill your animal soul. Hashem gave you a neshama to purify an animal soul, to be able to use the power of an animal soul for good. And by extension, to do the same thing to the world around it, to transform the darkness of the world into light. Varum de taketh, and the strength was is da in the neshama b'yiridas of the mata und afilu de taketh was tut sich in ihr eif durch ein hester von nefesh bahamis und welt. This which happens when the neshama, the strength the neshama gets or reaches or attains by descending down into this world and being clouded and covered and encapsulated by the concealments of the nefesh bahamis and the world itself, is nit kein chiddush. Vibal the neshama is be'etem elikus on hod be'etem tainug in elikus. The neshama itself is not worried about it. The neshama itself is always connected to elikus. Darüber tut sich durch dem nit auf der schleimsdicke Eifen von Alicha va'aliyah Massei und Atzmus Mamish. It doesn't therefore reach this level of aliyah by itself, of elevation. It doesn't elevate on its own. B'shas aber minutzt dem Inyan von Matis, the takef, auf kupa sein und mahapich sein l'teiv the nefesh bahamis. It's by way of elevating and transforming one's animal soul. Was das is hepich tiva legamri. An animal is giving into its nature. That's what an animal is. An animal, let's say, is on all fours. Its character is characterized by being on all fours. And when it's on all fours, its brain and its heart and its stomach and its reproductive organ are all on the same level. It's when a person stands upright that there becomes a hierarchy, and we're supposed to live according to that hierarchy and an awareness of that hierarchy. A nefesh ba'am is an animal, doesn't make such a cheshbon, doesn't make such a calculation, right? So by a neshama coming down and refining an animal to becoming something better than its nature, this is the work. Was durch dem wird nifsekol zerusa von nefesh ba'am so befreit noch durch es habcha euch von cheshach hagalus, and this is the same thing as it pertains to transforming the darkness of the world and the darkness of exile. Poil das oif dem shleimus de keteke va'aliyah bli gvul oich in dem nefesh lekis. This is the going out of one's own limitations and the by using the strength of the godly soul. Va'oifen from b'chol me'edecha. This is all one's might. Mer afilu from the me'ed from nefesh lekis varum durch dem veret ayid eins kibiyachol min atzmos. And more than just the nefesh, the godly soul's own abilities, but more than that, the nefesh elikis ability, when it connects in a way that it becomes one entity with Hashem Himself, which we said was through Meseres Nefesh. So like them is moving the oiftu in them was Yud Zayin Tammuz, the erste Tag from Bein HaMitzarim is Chal B'Shabbos Parshas Balak. And this, the Rebbe goes to say what happened in the year, he said, the Sicha, when the first day of the 3 weeks falls on Shabbos, which is Parshas Balak, which ends in the story of Pinchas. The kavanah v'tachlis from the Bein HaMitzarim is as zol zayin v'hafachti avelim l'sasin. The whole point is just like we said when a morning day falls on Shabbos, the morning practices get pushed off. We don't mourn on Shabbos. Therefore, we can see that this is the purpose of coming into this world in the first place, in order to transform mourning into days of joy, of rejoice. As the Yemei Tayin is Gufa Yahavkul L'Sasim L'Simcha, as we said earlier, that the days of mourning themselves, the days that we mourn for the destruction of the temple and the subsequent exile, will become days of rejoicing, because we'll understand that this was the first step in the process of the final redemption. V'yesh leimar as das is eich marumas in them was the Eibishter hat the Navi Yirmiyah ba'vizin mikal shked. That he showed Yirmiyah, Hashem showed the prophet Yirmiyah a staff with an almond on it. It was an allusion to what he said was Shaykid Ani, I'm going to do the things that I said I was going to do regarding redemption quickly. Sheked. So shkedim, almonds are called shkedim because they sprout fast. Sheked. So was das is wie Chazal sagen a Remez auf die Chof Aleph Yom von Beina Mitzarim, Punkt wie die Pri von Shkedim. Shemashas Chanitase Egmar Bishule Aserim ve'echad Yom says that an almond takes 21 days to sprout. And so the Chazal, the sages, see this correlation between the fact that Hashem referred to or shows Yirmiyahu, the Yirmiyah, the staff with an almond, to let us know that this is going to happen quickly. And what's going to happen quickly? The Geula. And it's completely tied to the Beina Mitzarim. It takes 21 days for an almond to sprout. This allusion to the Geula and the redemption that Hashem is promising us is associated with the 21 days that are in 3 weeks, the 3 weeks of mourning. Was damit is the Eibishter Marames nit nor dem Hebechatev. He's not only hinting at this by this thing that is the opposite of good, nor beikar the mechuven von dem Inyan as zal werden mekal shekei l'mal yusay. In Tzaratei, wie der alte Rebbe is mevar in dem Inyan von Perech Mata Arrein v'yigmul shekedim, as the time davon is weil das beweist auf the mehirus v'teikev ha'ashpa l'mata. This is an allusion to, he discusses over here, the alter Rebbe mentioning by the staff of Aaron, that the staff of Aaron sprouted shkedim. It sprouted almonds to show Aaron HaKohen being a symbol of the, not just a symbol, the conduit for the shefa, the flow of godly energy into this world from above, coming quickly. And this is that Hashem is trying to show us that the flow of godliness into this world is instantaneous. It happens like that. Is b'shas Zayin Tammuz is on Eich Tisha B'Av Zayin Chab Shabbos. When the 17th of Tammuz falls on Shabbos, and so does Tisha B'Av, the final day of the mourning period, is from as it was the year that the Rebbe said the Sicha, is doch Shabbos deiche es hatainas, that Shabbos pushes off the fasts itself. Uneisef is Shabbos mahapich dem Tag von Beina Mitzarim in a yom was mitzvah l'simche l'smache u'le'angei al derech vi the Inyan v'hafachti avelim l'saslev. We see an actual example of it happening where Shabbos is transforming, because of Shabbos is transforming a mourning period. This thing that is not good, and we're mourning and fasting, all of that gets pushed off when the day itself falls on Shabbos. That Shabbos transforms these things. It actually shows us what it'll be like in the Geula. Or befrat as das is the teichen from Yom Shabbos b'chlal. And this is the idea of Shabbos in general. Via state in Torah Chahadim, if mizmor shir Yom Shabbos, on this pasuk it says lamashbis mazikim min ha'olam, that this word Shabbos is saying lamashbis, that it pushes off or does away with mazikim min ha'olam, that which is aggressive in this world. Und wie the Tzemach Tzedek is das mevar, and the Tzemach Tzedek, the third Rebbe of Chabad, explains as shleimus inyan Shabbos is mahapech the mazikim l'toiv. It's not that it's destroying the aggression, it's that it's transforming it to good. Was me'ein zeh is given b'Shabbos b'tchilas habriya, that is the Shabbos is that happened in the beginning of creation. Biz as das is given begashmius mamish v'chazal zogen lamed vav shas shimsha isa ha'ira, that it says that the sun shined for 36 days the first Shabbos. Das heißt, as Shabbos b'shleimusa tut oif begalui dem inyan hisabcha from the Beina Mitzarim, we see that Shabbos is an actual revelation of the transformation of the 3 weeks of mourning. Varam inyan shleimus Shabbos v'es is given begalui b'tchila habriya, is to mahapech zayin dem cheshech halayla le'er. We see by the example of the very first Shabbos in the first week of creation, where we saw this extension of daylight. Right, it was an increase in daylight. V'layla k'yom yair. Hey, as to mahapech zayin dem cheshech halayla le'er. V'layla k'yom yair, that night shined like daylight. Hepechin in a galus. Und Beina Mitzarim was is mahapech yom halayla. And exile and the 3 weeks is the opposite of that. It extinguished the light of Geula. It extinguished the light of our being in the Holy Land and living in a time of redemption. So naturally it comes out. As B'Shas Yudzayin B'Tammuz, the time that the 17th of Tammuz bowed by him unheb from the Bein HaMitzarim, which falls in the beginning of the 3 weeks, or is the beginning of the 3 weeks of mourning, is Chal b'Shabbos. When it falls on Shabbos, tut sich oif the inyan from Makdim Refu Alamakel from Bein HaMitzarim. We see an example, like we said by Tzemach Tzedek, where Hashem sends the cure before he sends the Yonas. Es is mahapich the yamim gleich v'tchilasim. It completely transforms the days like it was in the beginning of time. Und das macht leichter the avodas ha'adam in the Bein HaMitzarim, and this shows us the avodah that we are supposed to undertake during the 3 weeks of mourning. The avodah from Mattos-Massei, the work, the service, the way of serving Hashem in a way of Mattos, the strength that comes, that leads to a progression of neshama, an aliyah, a halicha, a progress within oneself. Und wie sie seinen biyached kanal in dem eshapcha von nefesh bahamas and galus, and in a way that allows us to transform the animal soul in a time of exile. Weil derch zeh is mitzad the parsha b'teira, parshas balak, was ihr teichen seinen die brachos von Bilam, welche seinen eich gewen beeifen von velei ala Hashem elikacha l'shmoya el Bilam v'yahafich Hashem elikacha l'chayas haklala l'vracha. Bilam went, he hated the Yidden, and he got hired to do it. He wanted to do it. He went to go curse the Jewish people, Rahman al-Atzlan. And it says that Hashem wasn't interested. So instead, he changed that. Instead of Bilam cursing the Jewish people, every time he opened his mouth to say a curse, it ended up being a bracha, a blessing. Was da to thereby is given, nit nor the etzem inyan from the v'yahapich Hashem alikacha l'chayas haklala l'vracha. It's not only that the essence of this concept that Hashem transforms the curse into a bracha, nor was das is given davke durch Bilam's v'Bilamin. Was is the lauma ze from Moshe das heis the tachlis hahipich from kedusha. It happens to be, it wasn't enough that he transformed any old curse to a bracha. He did it by way of causing that it happened from Bilam. That Bilam was the one who ended up serving us up these beautiful brachas. Bilam, who was the opposite of Moshe Rabbeinu. So Nachmer, and furthermore, the siyum von sein nevuah is given b'negei achris hayamim. And not only that, Bilam's what Bilam says in the Parshas Balak is the only allusion, or not allusion, the only actual statements about the Mashiach, the coming of Mashiach and Geula. That happened from Bilam's mouth. Not only did Bilam fail at cursing us, not only did he want to curse us, and he was the lowest of the low and the worst and the opposite of Moshe Rabbeinu. It says in Kabbalah that he was a Navi on the same level. He had the prophet on the same level of Moshe Rabbeinu, but the evil version. And when he opened his mouth to curse us, he gave us a bracha. And then when he went to go run his mouth and talk about us, what happened? He ended up talking about the Geula and the redemption and Mashiach. It'll be in the end of days. Wegen der Geula durch Mashiach tzidkenu. The Rambam is mavar, as the Rambam Maimonides goes into detail describing these psukim and what they reference. Was wird areis nemen Yidden von dem Galus von Bein HaMitzarim legamrei, which is what's going to happen when we come out of the galus and the exile that took place, beginning with the 3 weeks of mourning, like we're in right now. And when all of these ideas come together and coalesce, that the two parshas of Mattos and Massei are connected, and we also lane parshas Pinchas in the beginning of Bein HaMitzarim, in the Kvias von Heintige Yar, and specifically like the year that the Rebbe said this, as his Chalos Yemei HaMitzarim is B'Shabbos men laned Parshas Balak, where he laned Parshas Balak, which happened right before Parshas Pinchas. Is Das Nachmer Mahar Dem Yahapich Yamim El Sasim L'Simcha, where we'll be able to transform the darkness into light, into joy, and to rejoicing. As from them Mikal Shaked zal werden the Shekeda L'Teva, Shekedas HaGeula, as zal sein the Shakadati La'achnis B'nei Yisrael La'eretz Yisrael Miyad, B'Shaita Chada B'Shaita Chada U'Berega Chada zal sein the Geula al Yedei Mashiach Tzidkenu Lamata Ma'asar Tvachim, which should happen by the Hashem bringing us into the Geula, bringing us into Eretz Yisrael in a way of a final redemption, speedily, in a way of Sheked, like he said with the almond Shekeda, which should happen right this second, right this instant, without hesitation, with the coming of the Geula, with the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu, right now, before I hit end this meeting. Yasher Koach.